introduction in this.
Don't stop, don't miss it. All you ladies pop your booty like this. Shake your body, don't stop, don't miss it. All you ladies pop your booty like.
What's up, friends? I'm J Maxwell. Welcome back to my channel. This is J Max Reacts. Today I'm watching a video by Twink182 that said Twink182. Why is that your name? The video says, did Ciara's fantasy ride kill her career? Let's see what happens.
When talking about iconic 2000s musical acts, Ciara absolutely has to be in that conversation. While she wasn't the biggest star of the decade, she was undoubtedly an A-lister who had numerous hits that are still well known to this day. Her first two albums saw massive success, with singles like Goodies and Like a Boy becoming radio staples. Ciara's star was shining bright, but her momentum seemingly stalled out with 2009's Fantasy Ride. The album didn't achieve the same success as its predecessors, and while Ciara has remained a huge name in the music industry, she may have been even bigger had it not been for this album's disappointing performance. What went wrong with Fantasy Ride? Is it a bad album, or is it simply underappreciated? To get started, let's dive into some background for the album. Fantasy Ride was originally meant to be a 3-disc album.
Really?
The discs were going to be called Crunktown, Kingdom of Dance, and Groove City, with each having a different musical style that would reflect their names. While it's unclear if Fantasy Ride was going to be a super long album, it's safe to assume with 3 discs, there was probably a lot of songs made for it. The 3-disc idea was eventually scrapped, but the 3 different styles are still present throughout the album. Examples include the planned lead single High Price featuring Ludacris, which was meant to be on Crunktown, Never Ever featuring Young Jeezy, which was meant to be on Groove City, and Love, Sex, Magic featuring Britney Spears' ex, which was meant to be on Kingdom of Dance. The triple disc idea was a clever way of integrating her older crunk and R&B sound along some synthy electropop cuts. Remember, Ciara debuted in 2004 when hip-hop and R&B was the dominant genre. By 2008, electronic and dance pop had exploded in popularity, and artists had to change their sounds up to stay current. However, given Ciara's history of dance songs, it didn't seem too far off for her to make an album that would fit in with the music of the time. Her second album was especially filled with 80s-inspired dance tracks, so this wasn't unfamiliar territory for her. With how well she had been doing commercially, it seems like Fantasy Ride was poised to be another huge era. Ciara began the promo cycle with one of the coolest publicity stunts I've ever heard of. For one day in September 2008, she went to Six Flags over Georgia, where the roller coaster Goliath was renamed Fantasy Ride. She also did a meet and greet with fans and signed autographs. Did anyone go to this? I'm genuinely curious. This is awesome. Anyways, after getting off the non-Fantasy Ride, the single started to roll out. The album's lead single, Go Girl featuring T-Pain, was released on September 26, 2008. The song underperformed, peaking at number 78 on the Hot 100 for 1 week before dropping off the charts entirely. Due to this poor performance, the song wasn't included on the standard edition of Fantasy Ride, though it was tacked on as a bonus track for the Japanese release. This is a damn shame because Go Girl is a bop. It is a so good song. 2008, and I mean that in the best way. Never Ever was the second single. It's a mid-tempo ballad as well as a mid-ballad. Okay, Never Ever is not among the best songs on Fantasy Ride. It's not even one of the better ballads on Fantasy Ride. So it clearly wasn't the best choice as a second single.
Still like it though.
It failed to chart on the Hot 100. And yeah, I could see why. It's not bad at all. It's just not great, and definitely not a good pick as the second single. At this point, it was becoming questionable if Fantasy Ride was gonna do well, as it lacked a hit single before its release, unlike her previous albums. Luckily, the third single, Love, Sex, Magic, fared much better. The song peaked at number 10 on the Hot 100, and apparently did well internationally as well. I remember hearing the song on the radio a lot, so it's definitely the highlight of this era. The song Like a Surgeon was planned to be a single, but for whatever reason, those plans were scrapped. Although I swear to God, I remember hearing it on the radio as a kid. I'm definitely just misremembering that.
No, you're not.
I don't know, I swear I heard it back in the day.
No, they played it on the radio. Like, a lot of songs didn't necessarily, they would be planned for release, so they would be sent to radio, and then they wouldn't actually get videos and stuff like that. I do remember hearing Like a Surgeon on the radio. I really didn't like the song, but I heard it on the radio a lot. I did.
Probably just thinking of a similar song though.
No, you're not.
The actual final single, Work featuring Missy Elliott, was released over a year later in 2009. Once again, the song didn't chart on the Hot 100 and failed to garner much attention, which again is a shame because it's a great song. Missy Elliott plus Ciara on the track always leads to a bop.
It does.
And this is probably their most underrated one.
Yeah.
But with that, the Fantasy Ride era came to an end. While it wasn't necessarily a flop, she'd be getting to that with her next album. It definitely started the downward commercial performance of her music.
Yeah.
Fantasy Ride, for whatever reason, didn't connect with audiences. This may be due to the seemingly abrupt image change Ciara took on for this era. Similar to what Beyonce would do on I Am Sasha Fierce, Ciara took on a different persona for Fantasy Ride, becoming Super C. No, not the Super Nintendo game. While I can't speak for the general public of 2009, I could just say personally, I don't really think the superhero vibe comes across in the album itself. I love the artwork for the cover, which was actually done with DC Comics artist Bernard Chang, but I don't really get superhero from Fantasy Ride. Not that that's a bad thing, but I do think the marketing may have confused people. Ciara is the princess of crunk, so for her to do a pivot into seemingly cartoony, bombastic electropop was probably jarring. The irony is, I actually don't think this album sounds too far removed from her last one. Ciara The Evolution was a pretty dance-heavy album with electronic and 80s inspired production, and while I do think Fantasy Ride leans more into pop as opposed to R&B, the R&B is definitely still there. I personally love Fantasy Ride. I'd rank it up there with her self-titled album and her other self-titled album as my favorites by her. It really is a ride. It's just craziness throughout, from her opera-like vocals on High Price to the frantic production on turntables. That's not even to mention the lyrics on some of these songs, which are hilarious in parts. Especially the song G is for Girl, B to C. She literally goes through the whole alphabet, listing reasons why she's that girl. It's legit impressive how she was able to think of something for each letter.
Because she didn't do it. That was Justin Timberlake and James Pomeroy that wrote that song for her.
It's so over the top. I just love it.
Yeah.
Pucker Up is another hilarious song, with her repeatedly telling you can kiss her swag. God, this really was 2008, wasn't it?
It was, and the Pucker Up was actually for Britney Spears. Shout out to Kalina from Dirty Money and Love and Hip Hop who wrote that song. Such a dope record. I loved it.
This campiness may have gotten lost on audiences
it did.
Since they had already known Ciara as a primarily crunk and R&B artist who took herself a little more seriously than how she portrayed herself on Fantasy Ride. It's not like how Lady Gaga or Kesha came out immediately as eccentric pop personas. Ciara already had an image, and this album may have came across as her trying too hard to fit in. While Ciara's career eventually recovered, it never reached the heights of her first two albums, and it's hard to not see Fantasy Ride as the beginning of that decline. It makes you wonder what the trajectory of her career would have been had she gone in a different direction for this album, or if it had simply been marketed differently. Still, Ciara's doing perfectly well to this day, and while Fantasy Ride wasn't the huge success it should have been, it still has its fans. Maybe Super C will come back one day to record another record. Or probably not, but I can dream, can't I?
No, let's not. My favorite Fantasy Ride songs: Love, Sex, Magic, High Price, Like a Surgeon, Lover's Thing, J is for Girl, Keep Dancing on Me. Okay, I don't think Super C will come back. I don't, foresee that. I always will forever say this was easily one of her best albums. People just didn't know it because it really was a mess in terms of the image, the marketing, just everything. The rollout was just weird. And that's not necessarily her fault. We found out in the next album that she was paying for all her stuff. The label was pretty much not funding or even supporting it. So she was pretty much operating like an independent artist while being signed to a major corporation, which I think is why a lot of her career kind of saw a decline, because she was creating really good music in that time period. Like, you know what I mean? I'm a person that loves songwriting and like the production pieces, and I also love leaked music. The leaks from this album and Basic Instinct and then the self-titled album, the leaks alone could have been great. I think that's essentially what we also saw in her music for those like that 3 or 4 album span, she just chose interesting songs to put on the album, and then even, you know, even more interesting picks for singles. It was just like weird, because like she had songs like Blow, This Is What Love Is, Shut 'Em Up. Like there are all these leaked records that were a part of all these sessions that could have been huge, and they would have given her, in my opinion, the ability to kind of fuse the pop with what she was already known for. And I think that's essentially what we also saw. She was trying to fit in with what was going on, but she was also just trying to evolve. When I think about Fantasy Ride, I think about it being one of her, like a very strong vocal album from her, especially when you look at songs like Keep Dancing on Me, Tell Me What Your Name Is, and a few other ones. It's like she was actually singing on them songs. You know, it's like, okay, Ciara, you can, you know, people used to say she couldn't necessarily sing. She wasn't like the strongest singer, but like she showcased the vocals on that one. And then from that album up until now, her vocal performance on most of her projects has gotten so much better. The first 2 albums, they were just bops. You know what I mean? We will forever know about Goodies and The Evolution. Nobody will ever nobody can deny that those albums were super impactful in their own way. But I think, you know, she even experimented a little bit with Promise, because that was a song that was super R&B and super different and soft for her. So she showcased over, you know, all these albums that she could really, really do well with any genre. I think she had a lot of competition too in the time that this album came out, because 08, 09, when this came, was the year that we got we got Rated R, and then we got Loud from Rihanna, we got I Am Sasha Fierce from Beyonce, we got In a Perfect World from Carrie Hilson. Like she had like this really interesting realm of competition, and I just don't think her music stood out in the way that it should have. In terms of like mainstream success, I fucking loved it, because I'm a Ciara stan. I love her music, so you know, I was tuned in, but I just don't think a lot of other people were tuned in, because there were other people really killing it, and you know, she wasn't putting out another Goodies. It wasn't another 1-2 Step. It wasn't, you know, another Like a Boy. It wasn't another what was the other song that she put out? It wasn't a Can't Leave Him Alone. It wasn't that vibe. So people were just not checking for it, which is sad, because it was some good music. But I could deep dive into this all day. Shout out to this channel. This was a really, really good breakdown. I don't think it killed her career, but you're right, it definitely started the decline of what we saw in her being more popular than what she could have been, or what she should have been, essentially. I think I worded that right. Sorry, I'm rambling a little bit. But let me know your thoughts on this below. Comment, like, subscribe. Until next time, peace.
All you ladies pop your body like this. Shake your body, don't stop, don't miss it. All you ladies pop your